During the final years of the Second World War, American submarine warfare in the Pacific reached its most lethal and decisive phase. Commissioned in November 1943, USS Parche SS-384 entered the war at precisely this turning point. She was a Balao-class fleet submarine, one of the most advanced undersea warships of her time. Built with a stronger pressure hull, Parche could dive deeper than earlier submarines and withstand greater punishment from enemy depth charges. Her long-range endurance also allowed her to conduct month-long patrols across the immense Pacific Ocean. Constructed at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in 1943 and commissioned that same November, Parche arrived not as an experimental vessel, but as a fully developed weapon designed for the brutal realities of modern naval warfare. From the moment she joined the fleet, Parche came under the command of Lawson P. Ramage, a bold and aggressive submarine officer already well known within the U.S. Navy, nicknamed Red because of his hair and fiery personality. Ramage believed submarines were meant to strike hard and destroy the enemy, not simply observe from a distance. Under his leadership, the crew trained relentlessly. Ramage demanded initiative, speed, and independent thinking from everyone on board, from officers on the bridge to sailors deep in the control room. His command style created a culture where hesitation could be deadly and decisive action was expected. By early 1944, the submarine war in the Pacific had changed dramatically. At the start of the conflict, American submarines had been plagued by faulty torpedoes, overly cautious tactics, and rigid command structures. But after years of painful lessons, those problems had largely been corrected. U.S. submarines had become aggressive hunters of Japanese shipping. Merchant vessels that once traveled freely were now constantly threatened. Fuel shortages began crippling the Japanese Navy, and troop movements across the Pacific became increasingly dangerous. Every convoy sailing through contested waters knew that somewhere beneath the waves an American submarine might already be tracking them. It was in this dangerous environment that Parche departed Pearl Harbor on her first war. Parche in March 1944, operating as part of a coordinated wolf pack, she patrolled waters south of Formosa. The mission was tense and often uneventful. Days passed in silence, broken only by radar scans, depth checks, and the constant threat of enemy aircraft overhead. Then, in early May, contact finally came. Under cover of darkness, Parche maneuvered into position and fired torpedoes into a Japanese convoy at close range. Violent explosions lit the night sky as several ships were struck. Post-war Japanese records later confirmed multiple sinkings credited to the attacking submarines. Parche returned to port with her crew and commander now proven in combat. However, it was Parche's second patrol that would define her legacy forever. In June 1944, she was assigned to hunt shipping in the dangerous waters of the Luzon Strait, a crucial maritime choke point between Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines. Nearly every major Japanese convoy traveling between these regions had to pass through this narrow stretch of ocean. For weeks, however, the patrol produced nothing but frustration. Enemy ships slipped away just beyond intercept range. Intelligence reports arrived too late. Japanese aircraft forced repeated crash dives that drained both fuel and morale. The convoy they sought, known as Mill-11, seemed almost mythical, constantly appearing in reports, yet always just out of reach. Finally, late in July, radar contacts appeared. The long-awaited convoy had been found. Mi-11 was massive and heavily defended, consisting of troop transports and merchant ships surrounded by vigilant destroyers, trained not only to hunt submarines, but to ram them if necessary. Faced with such a formation, Ramage made a decision that defied conventional submarine tactics. Instead of attacking cautiously from the outer edges of the escort screen, he chose to charge directly into the convoy on the surface under the cover of night. Parche surged forward at full speed, her diesel engines roaring as she slipped between enemy ships. Torpedoes were launched at extremely close range, detonations tearing through transports and lighting the darkness with fire. Chaos erupted across the convoy. Ships turned sharply to avoid collisions. Searchlights sliced through the night, and tracer rounds streaked through the sky. At one point, the entire convoy altered course, unintentionally placing Parche inside the defensive ring of escorts. Surrounded by enemy ships, any mistake could mean instant destruction. Yet Ramage continued pressing the attack, firing whenever a target appeared and using speed and confusion to keep the enemy disoriented. Then disaster nearly struck. Suddenly, Parche lost propulsion and slowed to a stop in the middle of the convoy. At that exact moment, a Japanese freighter began rushing toward the submarine with the clear intention of ramming her. On the bridge, amid the smoke and chaos, Ramage had not yet realized the engines had stopped. Below deck, however, a young sailor named Cortlandt Chester Stanton instantly understood the danger. Without waiting for orders, Stanton rang up the command for all ahead flank. The engines roared back to life. Parche lunged forward just seconds before impact, narrowly escaping the freighter. Crewmen later said the enemy ship passed so close they could see individual rivets along its hull. Stanton's quick thinking had saved the submarine and everyone aboard. By dawn, the convoy Mi-11 had been shattered. Several transports were sunk or burning, while others scattered in confusion. The violent attack stunned the submarine force and quickly became known as Ramage's Rampage. In just 37 minutes of fighting, Parche had sunk 5 ships while under heavy enemy fire. For his extraordinary leadership during the battle, Lawson P. Ramage received the Medal of Honor, becoming the first U.S. submarine commander to survive and receive the nation's highest military award. Despite the recognition, Ramage always insisted that the credit belonged to the entire crew. He believed Parche's success was the result of discipline, training, an initiative from everyone on board, from torpedo crews working under fire to sailors like Stanton, who acted instantly when catastrophe threatened. For their bravery, the submarine and her crew were awarded the Presidential Unit Citation. The rest of Parche's wartime career reflected the true nature of submarine warfare. Some patrols produced dramatic success, while others passed for months without a single confirmed target. Later missions brought the submarine closer to the Japanese home islands, where she attacked coastal shipping, targeted anchored vessels, and performed lifeguard duties to rescue downed American pilots during carrier strikes. These operations were often conducted in shallow waters, under constant threat from aircraft and patrol boats. By the end of the war, USS Parche had completed 6 war patrols and earned multiple battle stars, becoming one of the most respected submarines in the Pacific Fleet. After the war, however, her story took an unusual turn. She was selected as a target ship during Operation Crossroads at Bikini Atoll, where nuclear detonations were conducted to study the future of naval warfare. Surprisingly, Parche survived both the aerial and underwater atomic blasts with relatively minor damage, demonstrating the remarkable durability of her design. Eventually decommissioned in 1946, Parche was later used for training before being removed from the Navy's active list and sold for scrap. Yet pieces of the legendary submarine survive today in museum collections at Pearl Harbor, serving as reminders of one of the boldest submarine actions of the war. As for Red Ramage, his reputation was forever secured by that night in the Luzon Strait. a graduate of the United States Naval Academy who fought hard to join the submarine service. He would eventually retire as a vice admiral, but history remembers him most clearly for the moment he chose to abandon caution, charge directly into danger, and trust his crew to fight their way out. USS Parche did not win the Pacific War alone, but for one unforgettable night in 1944, she proved just how devastating a submarine could be when commanded with courage, skill, and absolute confidence in the men who sailed beneath the sea.